Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Keeping It Real on Purpose, and I am your host, Edna White. And I'm so glad today that we are on live with Author's Insight with a special author by the name of Justin Marlowe. And he is an up and coming African American author from Virginia who's released his debut book, a memoir entitled Perfect Strangers, Echoes of a Black Suburban Youth. Welcome to Keeping It Real on Purpose.
Thank you so much, Edna.
Well, so tell us about your book and what it's about. Give us a little summary to get us fired up.
Well, it's a memoir about a demographic that I always felt was underrepresented a little bit in terms of the Black community. I don't really, I haven't heard very many accounts of African American tales about like suburbia. Like you do see it in the media, like in television, you'll see it. Like shows like Family Matters or The Cosby Show, but very rarely do you hear someone's perspective when it comes from like their core and their ethos. So that was something that I always thought was going to be very interesting to tell. In addition to that, like my experiences, like we all have unique experiences no matter who we are. Right. So with a voice, I thought, and I think I have a pretty strong voice, I thought it would be beneficial just to kind of like tell the story, intertwine elements that I dealt with that may have been difficult. In turn, also intertwining pieces of friendship and relationships that sort of like shape who we are. So really that was my goal, was just to kind of like give the audience a piece of who I am.
Okay.
And so they could see how I am shaped, which is flawed. We're all flawed, but in doing so, you kind of get this piece of self-analysis that is very, very cathartic during the writing process. So really, it was just, like a tale of what I would deem unique experiences intertwining with friendships and relationships and turmoil, anti-turmoil, positivity, negativity, strange periods, all into one, So that's what it's really about.
Okay. So I like to make things very plain, and you said some great things. But suppose my grandson is listening. He's 16. He always listens. Mm-hmm. So I need to know what you're talking about in plain English about your life, because this is about you in suburbia. And I need you to break down what suburban means. Tell them as if you're talking to someone who's 16. Make it plain, because we really want to know, and we want to be able to break it down so that we can, and we want your book to be a success, and we want people to know exactly what it's about.
Well, suburbia, in the literal context, like outside of the urban areas of society, but not necessarily rural areas. So, I'm not talking about like middle America, Montana, but it is like, for me, it's Virginia. Okay. And I'm right, but I'm right outside. I'm 40 miles from DC. I'm 35, 40 miles from Richmond. So these are two fairly, major issues.
Yeah.
And
so for me in Long Island would be Long Island.
And I spent some time in New York City actually, but I didn't really write about that in the book. But just kind of like dealing with these areas that during the 90s were not accustomed to individuals of color.
Right.
So, so when I talk about these centers that are on the outskirts of society, outskirts of urban society. So in DC, it's different, very much.
Right. So. Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Richmond is probably very different, but in these little suburban towns, like I said, the outskirts of urban hubs / metropolitan kind of centers, and when I was growing up, there weren't really very many African Americans. It was a budding society, but there weren't a whole lot of them that were already in place. So many of the individuals there, and those individuals, they're my peers and their parents. They don't really, in my opinion, they didn't really know how to interact with individuals like myself. So that's where the uniqueness of the story comes into play, because then you have someone like me who's kind of infiltrating a new space where you don't know where you fit.
Right.
They don't know where you fit.
Right.
Nevertheless, you have to exist. You have to keep telling your story. You have to live day to day. Yeah. So you just keep on living. And for me, it was like a Rolodex of events that just kept occurring in my head that, not everything came out, but a lot of things came out that I wanted to express.
Right. And I think your experience, number one, as a male, is very poignant in this climate that we're in now. And I think, I was raised in Alabama, but I came here. My mother got a job here. I came here, and I was in a suburban area that was majority Black, was majority white, and I believe I was the first Black person in the school. And I had braids, and it was a total shock to me. Total shock. Like I knew what they looked like, but they didn't know what I looked like. So it was a totally different experience, and them touching the hair, and what is this, and they're rubbing to see if it comes off. Literally, it was that intricate. It was just like that intricate. And being a kid in the 6th or 7th grade, you're like, whoa, this is heavy. This is a little heavy here. How did you navigate friendships?
Well, friendship is a pretty poignant point within the novel. And it was really hard because in my post-pubescent years, I guess, I had a hard time. At that point, I was living in Louisiana, where the racial dynamic was very different down there. So that is it's like its own beast in itself.
Right.
But I always part of what I wrote about was about how so many of my friendships were surface based. There's a lot of things that I wanted to talk about with regard to my upbringing and exposure to certain things culturally that I just didn't embark on with other individuals. So everything was very surface based. That doesn't mean they weren't great friendships. It doesn't mean that they weren't that they are like something to be like frowned upon whatsoever. But that's sort of why I bring in the notion of friendship into the later parts of the novel with my best friend Nikos, who I met in high school. So with doing that, it shows, and my intent is to show the development of myself and the development of I guess how I was internalizing tackling friendship, and kind of like what I needed, I guess, at the time was something that wasn't surface based, and it really had helped if it's another Black male, especially, from the same parts or the same similar area. So tackling friendships was very, very difficult, but at the time I didn't see it that way. Reflecting on it, I definitely see it as being difficult.
Yeah. I know. Well, growing up in the 70s and being, in the 6th or the 7th grade, my first friend was white, and she's Jewish on top of it. So it was a whole nother dynamic trying to understand that, But I think the friendship transcended, just thinking about it now as you're talking about it. We weren't surface. I guess girls are different. I want to say that. Maybe girls are different. We talked about everything. Some things I couldn't talk about because they were traumatic, and I didn't share because it was traumatic, to me. So I didn't talk about it, and it was a great escape for me to be with somebody that liked me, and I didn't think I would have, a friend. And that liked me, played with me, ate sandwiches with me, hit each other with dirt and everything, and just played, and that was a great thing. I know it's hard to kind of like for men sometimes to even have a conversation like that. The conversations are hard.
Yeah, that's an interesting aspect, like the gender dynamic. I never thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
I do, however, mention how I did, like, my first real, I would say, close friendship
Yes.
did come with a young woman
Mm-hmm.
who was also from a marginalized ethnic group, although also not marginalized economically speaking.
Okay.
But a young woman who was half Indian, half white.
Mm-hmm.
So her struggles, which is interesting because I just saw her a couple weeks ago, but we never discussed our heritage and how we internalize our
Right.
time. Although it would have been interesting to have done so because it
Yeah.
could have led to some very, very fruitful conversations, but
Right.
we never did.
Right.
But it's interesting that the one time that I kind of like broached, I guess, that issue or
Mm-hmm.
the issues that would have come to dissecting a little bit of like heritage in terms of you being maybe an outlier socially.
Right.
We didn't do it. So we just, it just didn't happen. And then, but I wrote about how it ended up happening at one point.
Right.
So yeah, friendships are tough, but
Mm-hmm.
like I've always said, like, I didn't write about my story in terms of it focusing on like heavy macroaggressions.
Right.
It's
Gotcha.
a lot of microaggressions, and a lot of I would say just like cultural backlashes to what people thought was the status quo.
Right. Oh, that's good. Yeah. That's good. I think as you're talking, and I'm actually reliving my friendship with
Mm-hmm.
Barbara. Her name was. We really didn't talk like that. Even when we got older. And we didn't. That wasn't something we talked about.
Right.
And I guess that's a good thing because it really gives you a place to be have fun with somebody. Because sometimes friendships could be very too serious. And but you can have a place to have like fun, because I know even with my friendships with my friends now, I think they're too serious.
Okay.
And I want to laugh a lot. I'm in the space now that I want to be healthy, and laughing is great for that.
Sure.
So I
Right.
see that there's so much seriousness now. I think I kind of converted to like being a 5-year-old. It's kind of scary. But relationships are very challenging, and so much so in suburbia. I tell you why. Because there's so much more. Well, I don't want to say more, but the responsibilities are different, and the societal things are different. They're different. Um, I'll tell you one thing that really kind of upset me, and it affected me for a long time. I didn't know in Long Island that they built bridges to keep people from the city, which were, for Black people not to come in. So they built the bridges low so the buses would come in. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's so depressing. They didn't want us in. They tried to create that. So societal things like that, learning those things, learning in certain suburban areas, they didn't want this was just for their people,
Right.
and that kind of thing. The racism really kind of gets to people as well, and young people, So that's a thing, because now they're learning so much more information, as before we didn't know that information. Do you talk about that in your book?
Well, there are a lot of discussions about, or I wrote about discussions that I had overheard from other individuals.
Gotcha.
Not necessarily as far as like barriers, like physical
Right.
barriers,
Mm-hmm.
but social barriers that you can
Gotcha.
when
Okay.
you hear other individuals sharing information, maybe
Mm-hmm.
even information that I'm saying like shouldn't have heard because it was like
Right.
someone else's private conversation.
Right.
you know,
Okay.
but
Yes.
you hear it, and then maybe your friend says, "Oh man, did you hear about what this person said?" I mean, like there was a situation where I had a friend whose her daughter was homecoming queen. Their daughter was homecoming queen, and the homecoming king happened to be an African American male. So they had to link arms on the football field. And the dad said to his wife, "That's the last time that our daughter's ever going to be seen next to a nigger again."
Wow.
So, but he didn't say it to me. He said it to someone else. Someone. So that's like and then, but his daughter's my friend.
Right. Okay.
So there's this barrier. So it's not a physical barrier like you're referring to. But then it's how am I gonna go hang out with my friend when I just heard that her dad said, that's kind of puts you in a weird position.
Yeah, absolutely.
And these kind of things, I guess during my upbringing, were happening all the time, just in rhetoric, and it's like I said, it's not a physical barrier. At least for me, it wasn't. So, in the 90s, it was like these rhetorical talking points that occurred. I mean, every week you hear it, and then you even can feel remnants of white supremacy.
Yeah.
Where people will say things that they think are compliments. Like they might say, "Oh, Justin, he's that kid, he talks like a white guy, but they think, I mean, it sounds stupid to say.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I get it.
They think it's a compliment,
right?
But saying it is reinforcing supremacist ideology,
right?
So those are the barriers that I faced that I wanted to emphasize within the memoir.
I think that's really important. And as you're talking again, I'm thinking of now children have to, for my grandkids, right? They now are faced with 3 generations. So they not only see grandparents, they see the father and the mother, so they see 3 different generations. I may be a grandmother who is not in my generation that maybe of another color would say something like you said, like something racist, and then they're friends with them and they're trying to navigate how do I act towards him if that's his grandmother and his grandmother's blood is in him, and does he feel that way? It's like, but she doesn't like me because I'm Black. She doesn't want my friend to hang out with me because I'm Black. She doesn't like that. So how am I supposed to feel? So it's a lot of that goes on too as well.
Yeah, and a lot of it I don't think it's always rooted in I don't like someone because of this. I think so much of it is passed down into what you're comfortable with.
Generate,
your comfort level. It is racism for sure. It doesn't make it less racist. It does maybe make it less malicious.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily change how the marginalized individual feels about what was said. Because then they're internalizing things with, I want to say a fresher perspective, maybe a less biased perspective. But like I said, it doesn't change the feelings that are
associated,
matriculated from generation to generation. So they're all really, really intricate, I guess, social dynamics that are sort of gymnastic, because it's topsy-turvy, everything somebody does, you say something and it offends someone, or you don't say it and that offends someone. But at the same time, when you're dealing with culture, especially, and when you're dealing with the minds of individuals who, the youth, so our minds, my brain wasn't formed properly at 12, 13, 14 years old. And then you're trying to navigate this space where you don't really know where you fit in or how you fit in.
Right, exactly.
Yet you kind of want to. And it for me, I had to get to a point where I didn't care where I fit in anymore. So I could just say, you know what, screw it.
Right. And did you ever get to that point? Did you ever get to that?
Absolutely. I'm there now. I I didn't get there within the time frame that I wrote about. And I kind of like I purposely didn't want to include any of that in this memoir because I wanted to leave it so that I could have something to write about in the future, possibly, where, they're like a part two, possibly, to the memoir. But in this memoir, no, I did not get to that point. I got closer to it than I was, but I did not get there fully.
So what would you say to someone that's kind of like going through this, that is trying to navigate through this, even at 12, like let's say at 12, what 1 or 2 steps you could give them, help them navigate through that?
I would say do your best to latch on to those that you feel closest to, especially like if what they're going through is slightly related to ethnicity. Then I would say try to find individuals who you could relate to that are similar to you ethnic wise, and ask them open-ended questions. The things that I didn't do, I did not do that.
Right.
I wish, like your question was posing, it's a great question. I wish I had done that sort of thing.
Right.
I wish I had talked to like my dad and mom, like I said, like, hey, what was it like for you in these specific situations? If they have, they're more likely to have teachers that are of color now than they would have been back then. So I would say ask your teachers questions, especially if they're teachers that are teaching in the humanities or in a history-based sort of like, or even English, subject matter, to kind of just get some perspective from others, from where you can borrow from their experiences. I didn't do that as much as I should have done it. I wish I had, but that would be my advice, would be to do that. And also I would say delve into your creative endeavors as well.
That's great.
Whatever you can do, to express yourself, art, music, writing, reading, any sort of thing that you can delve into. And the thing is, like, we have so many outlets now when it comes to information that individuals can get so much from so many other places. You can, depending on the level of scrutiny that you live underneath, these streaming apps have so many documentaries on them. Specific things.
That's one thing they'll do is watch a documentary or something like. They will watch that.
Well,
they'll stream
I used to love doing that, but that's harder when you have to like pop in a VHS tape or Or
I completely forgot about those.
Wait for PBS to air or something like that. Now you can just go right back to
just go to your phone.
Well, and use the technology for what's best. I
always say that too, is use the technology. There's so much room for growth and understanding. You can just use technology to do that and open up a flow of understanding. And my grandson is really famous for doing that. If he doesn't understand something, if he can't get to his mother, his father, or me, he will, well, I read this about this. Is that correct? He'll ask a question. So use it, like you said. Use it. I like that idea. I like that.
One thing I did when I was a kid, which to a lot of people it sounds kind of crazy, but when I was living in Germany, when I was 5 years old, and it was 1989, I think. And have you ever seen Eyes on the Prize?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that was airing on German television.
I'd love to see that way.
Yeah. Well, it was the same thing you would see now, just airing on German TV. And I used to watch. I remember one day I was watching it, and I'm 5 years old in a country that I don't know much about, and I don't know much about my own culture really as an African American at that point either. So, but I'm watching these portrayals of individuals in the American South from the 1950s at the time, which to me, it's like a mind fuck kind of. I'm like, holy shit, they did what was going on here? And then it started, the docu-series starts with the Emmett Till case. Yeah. And I'm 5 years old, and I'm sitting there watching this sort of like rehashing of this monumental event in American history. And I was blown away. And I think that was the impetus for me, like never stopping the stuff for myself, the study and the sort of cultural deep dive into that sort of subject matter.
Yeah. Do you see that it's that this type of study that you are, or this memoir and this subject that you're talking about needs to be broadened in our our culture altogether?
I definitely do, and I think that's part of why I think hearing from diverse voices is important, because I'm telling a story that is unique to me and to my demographic and to my ethnic group. However, others may feel differently,
right?
And that's okay. It's okay to have these tales from different sides of the railroad track, so to speak. But so I mean, I think it's great. I think we need more of it. That's sort of like one of the reasons why I'm sort of inspired to continue the journey of continue to write, because we're all one of one, So if you can if you do possess a strong voice and the ability to write well or to tell stories rhetorically, no matter what, no matter what your medium is, then I think it's incumbent upon you to do it, which is why I started doing it. And I think that, this is where, we need to have like more discourse amongst individuals to hear diverse perspectives.
Right.
That can do nothing but help society. And we're in a pretty fractured place anyway. In general, I think, at least in the United States of America. So I think
yeah. I think the dynamic is different, for everybody. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say the more we get from individuals that can articulate their perspective in a fruitful manner,
right?
It can only be great for society. Sure. So like these kind of discussions, like with you, these are great. This is where these are things that I think that we need more of, and that'll help.
Yeah. In your writing of what you're doing, I know there's a great discussion in the workplace, a lot of incorporating diversity, equity, and inclusion. Where do you see that being, whether it be real or fake or something that we need to work on in the dynamics in the suburban area?
Where do I see like DEI?
Yeah, like where is there a need for it? Are we getting the facts? So is it something we need? What do you see that being? Because I'm always hearing different stories about when especially diversity, equity, inclusion, coordinators or speakers. They're saying it saddens them that when they go, they see us. And they don't see who they really want to talk to. So I wanted to see how that kind of works in the, with what you do, what the story that you're telling. Are you talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Well, I'm not speaking about it in terms of the workforce.
Right. No.
But,
okay.
But I am, I guess, maybe in like a pseudo sense.
Yes.
Talking about it in terms of our sociological constructs, and how we live our lives. So I mean, I think diversity, equity, inclusion is important, especially since we live in a country that is sort of like based in systematic racism, and a lot of people don't, want to admit that that's the case. And I would always say, well, look at our like major systems, our education system, our healthcare system, our police force, our medical, all these things in there that have been, our political systems that have been designed for one kind of person to generally succeed. So, and then you do have like backlashes in terms of like stereotypes. In politics, you have intentional disenfranchisement of individuals based on race solely. Sometimes based on gender solely. So, when these sorts of things creep into society, they don't just go away.
Right.
They permeate. And then, of course, they get better. We're living in a better society now than we would have been in like 1875. That doesn't mean it's perfect. It doesn't mean that it's even close to where the ideals of the country are.
Right.
I think it's okay to say these things. It's okay to talk about them.
Right.
You can love your country and hate what it's done.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
They don't necessarily go hand in hand.
Right.
So, but I do mention issues when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion in terms of how it fits into society and how it plays into, how those maybe a lack of that permeates the brains of the youth. Because when I was a kid, it was rare to have an African-American teacher. Okay. So with that being the case, like if we are African-American youths who are developing ourselves, developing our brains and our skill sets, and we never see individuals that look like us teaching us, where is our perspective of the educator? What does that lead? Where does that lead?
Where does it take us? Yeah. Right. Interesting. Well, this book sounds like it could be a workbook of some sort for the entire family. This is really eye-opening. It's really eye-opening. And I do believe that this is a book that should be in every household. And so that we can spur up those conversations with our young people, especially our young males. And young women, everybody's included. Everybody is included. So that, there can be some of these uncomfortable conversations had, because like you said, it permeates that uncomfortableness there. Not having that conversation kind of turns up to be something else later on. So we have to have those conversations, and we have to say, hey, I don't feel good about this, and have be in a safe space to say that, and that's okay. That's really good.
Yeah, to not talk about it kind of like breeds more ignorance, and that's not good at all.
Absolutely. So where are you going from here, my friend Justin? What are you doing in the near future that we can join you on, or look forward to?
I am just right now. I'm continuing to promote this memoir. I wanted to do as well as I possibly can.
Yes.
At the same time, working on a new project, a science fiction project, which is sort of centered around I'm not saying it's similar, but it's centered around individuals who acquire supernatural powers after they lead a coup d'etat against a slave catcher.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like Black Panther-ish.
Okay.
But I'm finishing that up, like really, like as we speak, and kind of like shopping that around right now.
Okay.
But so that, and also, like I said, continuing to promote Perfect Strangers. It's my first project. I want it to be, like you said, ideally, be in the homes of, everybody, or
yes.
The
suburbanites.
Hey, I love that. I have a lot of people that are from suburbia that have, especially, I would say, a lot of middle-aged white women have been very, very intrigued by the project and what I've written about, which is not a demographic that I initially thought it would hit. But hey, I'm open to anyone learning. I just want to.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that's what it's supposed to be. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
So that's what I'm working on right now. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you very much though for the platform and for.
Oh, no problem. Now tell us how we can find Perfect Stranger.
If you're a business or if you are a retailer, you can find it on Ingram. You can order it at a discounted rate for your establishment, or if you want it for yourself personally, you can order it on Amazon. If you just Google just name Perfect Strangers and my name, Justin Marlowe, it'll come up right away. And that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, can we look forward to hearing it on Audible at any time coming soon?
I have heard people ask me that's been a question for the past like 3 weeks.
You got to get those people driving.
Yeah, I know.
You're in suburbia.
Yeah, I don't right now, no.
Okay.
But just, I would say be patient. You can, I mean, if anyone wants, you can follow me on Instagram.
Okay.
J Marlowe writes, if anyone wants to ask any questions, I'm very open to like DMs and like, engaging with potential fans, anyone from the audience who has anything to say whatsoever,
Okay. Well, that is terrific. We thank you for dropping these complete, beautiful gems on us today. And we're so excited for your project and for the new one. And we're looking forward to hear that on Audible pretty soon. Because these suburbanites are in their trucks, their cars, riding 2 or 3 miles or 10 miles to something. They need something to listen to. So this will be great. This will be great for them. This is Edna White, your esteemed host, and my esteemed guest, Justin Marlowe, saying goodbye for now.
Have a good one.